Good afternoon, family. I'm Reginal Drummer, the Peopleologist, and welcome to another episode of We Are Ready. And I want to encourage you to like, share, and subscribe over here on our YouTube channel. Got a lot of information, a lot to share, and we need to share it with our family, friends, and loved ones. Also, go over and join us. We on our Facebook page. We got a survey that we got out there. If you look up here, we got a whole, as they say, plethora of topics and questions about all sorts of things. Because in order to get ready, we have to stay ready. And in order to stay ready, we have to be ready at all times. So we got challenges coming up all around the circle of the family, you and I. So we have to be ready at all times. Before I get into with our guest this evening, I just want to remind everybody of our challenge, the 100-day challenge. And some of you all ready into 30 days. Those 5 different aspects of the challenge. We say people hopping over crates and doing dances over on TikTok. Well, we got 5 challenges over here to get us ready so we can stay ready and have our families ready. One is to spend at least 1 hour a week with yourself. Just me, myself, and I. Praying, fasting, meditating, whatever you have to do, just 1 hour a week. That's less than 10 minutes a day. And a lot of people don't get a chance to spend at least 10 minutes a day unless they're in the hospital with tubes hooked to them. So spend at least 1 hour a week. Number 2, drink at least 1 bottle of water a day. Just 1 bottle of clear water. Just 1 bottle. You'd be surprised how it's going to clear up your mind. It's going to get your blood to circulate. It's going to help you detox. And then number 3, walk, crawl, or run a mile a day. If you do it over the next 100 days, you'll have 100 miles logged in. And just from running, walking, it'll put you in a position where everything's going to feel better. The blood's going to circulate better, all of that type stuff. And then number 4, save at least $1 a day over the next 100 days. If you already started or if you are about to start, you'll have $100 in 100 days. And if you're in the upper seats and you know better, you can save $10 a day. You'll have $1,000 and you'll be ahead of about 40% of the population. And then the last challenge is to get in touch with your family members. Call them up, especially during these holidays. If you get 1 a day, you might go through 100 family members. You'd be surprised who's looking, listening for your voice. So that's our challenge. Now, over here, we always pick something off the board. And tonight, it's going to be, we're going to talk a little bit about ADOS, which is a group that's focusing on reparations. Now, when we talk about being ready and staying ready, we talk a lot about preparing for end times, but we also have to prepare for where we are right now and where we want to go. But this evening, I'm joined by an Atlanta ADOS member, Brother Ray Jones. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm wonderful. Great to be here, man. So appreciative, brother. Nice to meet you.
Nice to be met, man. I know you bring and it's good to see young brothers involved in something as important as reparations. And I know it's some other things, but I want, before we chop it up, give the audience so they'll know who we're talking to tonight, and they'll know who's bringing them some information and help them with some questions, including myself.
Well, yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm so honored to be here. I'm Ray Jones. I'm with ADOS Atlanta, the Atlanta chapter, but I'm also I'm the creator of HoodHeroezTV. So HoodHeroezTV is a platform where we spotlight the heroes in the community doing good work like yourself, my brother. Wow. So that's what HoodHeroezTV does. So that's why I'm here.
I like that. And that made me think of we have a lot of unmentioned people that don't get the spotlight all the time. but they on the ground. They putting in work. They
Mm-hmm.
putting in work not just for themselves, but for the family, the community at large. And I know you were involved with an organization for advocacy, ADOS. Could you break it down? Just what are you focused on? And, maybe your mission statement or something like that?
Yeah, most definitely. And so Hood Hero, well, I said Hood Heroes, but ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slavery, right? So our goal is actually we're pushing for reparations and a transformative Black agenda. So that's what we're doing. I could actually read you our mission statement as well. But the mission statement is the American Descendants of Slavery grassroots organization that arose in response to a national landscape rife with yawning racialized gaps, with an eye toward the origins of these asymmetrical outcomes located in the institution of slavery. Our organization prioritizes reparations for descendants of chattel slavery in the United States of America. In the United States of America, ours is an experience defined by the unique shared cost of multi-generational plunder. And as we stand in the shoes of our ancestors, we insist upon a specific group designation as essential as essential to this undertaking. During Reconstruction, America reneged on the promise of 40 acres and a mule, depriving us of the fruits of citizenship and relegating us to a permanent bottom caste within the country that our ancestors built. Reparations is our birthright and must come through multi-generational direct payments and a redistribution of land that rights the wrongs of our great land robbery. A debt must be paid and our inheritance protected. We insist upon a historic, targeted allotment of policy and protections that fulfills the promise of economic inclusion and integrates the descendants of chattel slavery into the drivers of wealth. This restoration, which brings us into alignment with the full measure of our contributions to the U.S., requires mechanisms to safeguard and against subprime and predatory capital and sweeping anti-discrimination legislation targeted for the protection of and accelerated wealth creation of the descendants of chattel slavery in the U.S. So I'll stop there, but I could go on, but I'll stop there.
Okay. Well, just from that mission statement, uh, especially as a black and brown person here in America, that would really get my attention. That would really uh, make me think, and that would be something I would want to share with my family. Uh, uh, what when we define slavery, uh, from and we look at it, and I know a lot of people might be somewhat familiar with the 40 acres and a mule. They said, man, back in the day, my granddaddy was talking about the 40 acres and a mule. Uh, and some of the promises that were promised to us at the end of the Civil War. Now, some people might have gotten it, and some people didn't. Well, one of the things that could be troubling is some people just have given up. They don't even believe that they can get reparation or some type of you know retribution for what's been done. And this is nothing new. The United States done this with a lot of groups, and they already talking about breaking off some money to a group of people, immigrants now under the current administration.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it with the Japanese after World War II. uh, and believe it or not, probably some of these other, maybe Vietnam, a lot of folk.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that, especially within our community or here, we would be all on board, okay,
Mm-hmm.
ready to support and jump in. But that's not the case. What are some of the battles that you all are facing just with identifying the lineage of the people that should be getting some form of compensation? And we,
Well, we've gotten a lot of pushback from everybody whose descendants don't tie to the killing fields of slavery in America, chattel slavery. Everybody's giving us pushback because what was done to us was they flattened blackness. So
mm,
basically, we have no connection to slavery in our delineation when we're described. So therefore, anybody who comes over yesterday can be technically classified as an African American, even if they're one generation in. So
mm,
somebody can say that they're black just by them being a Nigerian who got here in the 70s. You know, if their parents got
okay,
here in the 70s and they were born in the 80s, they can be considered a black American.
mm,
The fact that there is no disaggregation or distinction in blackness, that was a strategic move made by our oppressor. So we're not able to separate who from who on paper. So you have other groups that have benefited from that flattening of blackness. Because at the end of the day, yes, we are all a global family and we're fighting a global fight against white oppression across the planet, because we know it's not white supremacy, because they're not supreme. It's actually white inferiority based on how much work they have to put in to stay on top, quote unquote. That's not supreme. That's an inferiority complex. So I just say global white oppression. So much work has been done, so much money has been invested in holding us back. And a part of
mm,
that is the flattening of blackness. Not only that, our politicians who are selected, you can't talk to a politician these days without them just saying minorities and people of color.
mm,
So that's problematic, because when you're dealing with a specific group of people that needs a specific redress, you can't put us in a bucket and just call us minorities, because when you do that, you're making everybody available for that specific redress when it's not owed to them. So that's the way that they've been able to siphon off benefits that go directly to us, because everybody in the Democratic Party or Republican, no, it doesn't even matter. But I say Democratic Party because that's mostly how we vote.
mm,
All politicians, they refer to us as people of color, minorities. That's been problematic. So one of the major issues that we've have having to undergo first is we need delineation or disaggregation. So disaggregation, or it's called delineation, whatever you call it, is being separated and being qualified as a specific group that needs specific redress. That's the first step in this reparations process. We're getting pushback from a lot of people because of that. Because once you say no, you're not going to say you're going to give benefits or you're going to have redress for black people by calling everybody people of color. We're not going for
mm,
that anymore. So a lot of groups are having issues with that.
mm. And uh, I guess would I heard a couple different terms identifying terms like foundational Black Americans,
Right,
uh, and people that are directly, well, you all have it in your the acronym, directly descendants of slaves.
right,
It's in a bloodline, and I don't know why people think that we have to share, you know, with others that don't fit there. Uh, and I know that's a problem because much of the information uh, that I've heard and seen talks about uh, trying to get into that group and get some of the benefits. And it just to me, if I did not belong in that group, it just doesn't seem fair.
right.
Uh, so I know it's an uphill battle, and I know uh, we do share a family, global family, Pan Africanism with other peoples. But this fight here in America is very unique, and it's pretty clear. Uh, and so definitely commend you and the organization uh, towards just staying focused, because a lot of times we get off focus and you bring so many people in, you find out that you didn't get nothing.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing. We're laser focused on that because, every movement has blind spots.
Mm,
And I think that was one of the blind spots of the movements before us, even the reparations movement before we got here. They didn't make a distinction and they didn't actually deal with, they use terms as African American. Well, African American can apply to anybody. And it's nothing personal. This is a justice claim. So when you're talking about law and you're talking about a justice claim, you have to deal with who the plaintiff is and who the defendant is. You have to have specificity. If you don't have specificity, you will lose the case. So we just, that's why our black agenda, it applies to everyone, but our reparations claim is specific. So no love lost. Oh, well, let me say it like this. We have love for our black immigrant brothers and sisters, but we need this distinction. I cannot go to Jamaica and say, no, I demand reparations
right. Yeah.
for the British. It's simple. And there is an organization, CARICOM, is based on getting reparations for people of Jamaican Caribbean descent, and they make that specific. But it's a problem when we do it. The reason being it's a problem when we do it is no one never expected us to actually, for it to click and for us to say, whoa, wait a minute. This is a strategy used by the US government. After the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we just got civil rights in
Mm,
64. Imagine the very next year, the immigration bill passed.
mm,
Before the Civil Rights Bill, the people that the black immigrants were right of the decimal point, meaning it was less than 1% of black immigrants even in this country. So no, they are not they're not owed reparations in the long sense, in the big sense. So that's
right.
it's nothing personal, but we've been called xenophobe and all of these crazy
Right.
terms, homophobe, all of these words that they throw, all the isms, we're thrown,
Right.
all of that stuff get thrown at us.
Well, I had a question in the chat. What's what are some of the differences or similarities between ADOS and the NCO in Cobra?
Okay, so in Cobra, they didn't point out, or they didn't figure out that blind spot of having an actual ethnic designation. So when you look at in Cobra's mission statement, their goal is more Pan-African and reparations for the entire diaspora.
Okay.
They don't deal with the specificity. So that's the major issue. They're a Pan-Africanist organization, which is cool. They can be that. But because they are Pan-Africanists, they do not specify who is owed reparations in the United States. They might say African American, but it's very gray. And even in
Mm.
on their website, some of the language is problematic because they say reparations is owed for all Black people in the diaspora. But
Mm.
you got to have that specificity or we won't get reparations. And no one is owed reparations, just like I'm not owed reparations in Haiti from the French.
Right.
If I go to Haiti, I'm just not owed reparations.
Right.
So that's the difference between in Cobra and ADOS. That's the main difference. Another
Mm.
difference is in Cobra's been on the scene for a very long time. There's no problem with that. That's fine. So they have made connections in the government. They've done work in the government, but they have, I feel like they've lost their way in a sense. This is my personal opinion. And they see a lot of their language, they've said that ADOS is a problem because we've made that designation. But we don't
Mm.
have any issues with anybody else, but they for some reason they see us as a threat when we're all fighting the same fight. But as Pan-Africanists, which they are, if that's what their organization is and they are Pan-Africanists, then they should be supporting all the local reparations movements in the diaspora. If they're doing big scope, if they're doing big lands and they're representing the entire diaspora, that's their goal, then they should be supportive of ADOS. So they have access to the HR 40 commissions, and these are going to be hearings, or basically HR 40 is a bill in Congress, and the goal is it's a study to study reparations and what's that's going to look like. So they're connected to the commission, and they basically have the power to select who's going to be on the commission. So it's very important that they have someone that is ADOS or understands the movement. They can bring in economists. It's a lot of people that they can bring in, but they have to understand why that designation, that ethnic designation, is so important.
Mm. Uh, I had another question, and thank you for clarifying that. But it was do in what ways has social media affected your platform? And what I mean by that is when you have social media, people can get on board. You got people that are part of the organization, and then you have people that we call them trolls. They just put out stuff to cause confusion, and we
Yeah.
saw a lot of that. Well, Black Lives Matter, and couple even Antifa, a couple organizations where people would come in and just put divisive messages in, and you have people fighting with ghosts. Got nothing
Yeah.
to do with the original intent or the mission. So, in what ways has social media affected your progress, or in what ways has it helped progress?
Well, it's done both because, this started off as a hashtag. ADOS started off as a hashtag. The founders Yvette Carnell, she's a political scientist. Antonio Moore is an attorney. They both got together. They've been doing political work, but they they started grasping and they came up. It came up out of their brain trust to identify us as American descendants of slavery, to tie that ethnic designation to our fight for reparations as soon as you hear it. You know, you can't get around slavery. You can't get around what's old. You can't even get around reparations without mentioning us. So when you mention ADOS and the acronym American Descendants of Slavery, right off the rip is reparations, you know? So that was a hashtag movement that went viral. Everybody start sharing, commenting ADOS, ADOS, ADOS. That lit a fire under the modern reparations movement, which for all intensive purposes was it was stalled.
Right. Yeah.
When you listen to Barack Obama's, when he did his first time running, and he was in a debate and he was discussing reparations, and they asked a question about reparations, him, Hillary, I forgot that other guy, but they all basically laughed. Ain't nobody laughing anymore. That was
Okay.
caused by the modern social media push, mostly on Twitter, where everybody was ADOS, ADOS, hashtag, hashtag, ADOS. This went viral and it caused the movement to flourish and grow. Now, with that, we've been attacked on social media as well. Harvard has attacked us. We've been attacked by media outlets. We've been attacked by a lot of trolls. Joy Reid called us Russian bots because the
Wow.
hashtag was blowing up so much.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been attacked by people in the media for being Russian bots. We've been attacked. There's been a lot of chaos as far as people saying we're xenophobic. So just to combat the work, we've been attacked. But a lot of this was people who were actually political shills for particular candidates and for particular political parties. A lot of these folks was Democratic shields that was attacking us. So we've caught the good side of it, but we also had to deal with the bad side of it. Now what we're doing is we're transitioning from just an online movement to an on the ground movement, because we started online, but now it's about getting in the field, doing the groundwork, talking directly to these politicians in their face and demanding them to advocate for us specifically. And if they don't do that, they will not get our support.
Mm. I like that. I like that. And I know you got chapters. Um, here are are you all aggressively going after getting more physical chapters versus the hashtags?
Yes, we are. So ADOS Foundation, that's basically the headquarters, the national headquarters for the movement.
Mm.
So we are setting up chapters all over the country. We got people all over the country, but we have to create the foundation, and we're taking our time with the foundation and making sure everything is tight, because we've been down this road before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Organizations get infiltrated. It's nothing
Oh,
that's going to stop that. Every organization under the sun, we know about COINTELPRO, gets infiltrated. So we're taking our time, just make sure it's straight. It's a 501c4. So we are getting the local chapters together, but it's just taking our time because we want to make sure that our ducks are in a row. So
right.
on the ground locally, the ADOS Atlanta chapter, we're meeting directly with politicians, and we're demanding that they have a political, a specific black agenda before we back them. And if we
Okay.
don't get that, they do not get our support. So we're vetting and we're actually grooming candidates. And that's going to be taking place all over the country, not just Atlanta.
Okay. Okay. That's a powerful step there, in getting into position and staying ready. Uh,
Yeah.
and you have to prepare, you have to strategize, and definitely commend you all on that. But and when we say reparation, you might have gone over it already, but I know we talked about who reparations who should get it, and
Right.
then the next big thing, what should we get?
Yeah, it's a lot of numbers floating out there. So the 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 number we're running with, and some people are running with different numbers, right?
Okay.
And right now we're at 17 to 20 trillion. That's the number
Okay.
we're at. That sound like an amazingly huge number, don't it?
Yeah.
But guess what? There was a study done that said the United States loses $17 trillion due to racism.
Mm.
So they already spending the money. They're losing the money.
Right.
I,
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard this, but a wise man once told me to hold somebody down, you got to stay down with them.
Ooh. Good point. Yes, that's true.
That's what America is. America is in the position that it's in because it's invested so much energy into holding us back.
Mm.
So if they actually stop trying to hold us back, it'll actually make the entire country better. The entire country would benefit. Because that study said, yeah, 17, they losing 17 trillion. And now I don't know if that's an
Mm.
annual number. I'd have to look at it,
Ooh.
but the study says $17 trillion is lost due to racism against Black Americans in this country. So
Mm.
it's not, it's they already spending the money and they're not getting anything for it. You know, the reason why we're last in education and
Mm.
all of these other metrics globally is because they put so much interest into keeping us uneducated. You know, they put a lot of work into the miseducation, as Carter G. Wood said, the miseducation of the Negro.
Oh yeah.
You know, so that's the number we're looking at, 17 trillion. But that number needs to that's why we have issues with some of the language in HR 40, because as soon we don't need to wait till the study is done. We actually need reparations right now. So there needs to be a green light of money off the rip. And then we could pay the other, we could figure out how to do it to where it makes sense. But it doesn't have to be 20 trillion at one time, you know? So we have to do the work to figure out what the math is going to look like. But 20 trillion is on the small side.
Wow.
Some people have said 4 quadrillion.
Mm.
They Let's be honest, they don't even have the money to pay what they owe us.
Well, okay.
They don't even have the money. If we really talk about the money, they don't even have the money to pay what they owe us. That's why we need land. We need every aspect that is going to take to make us whole, because you
Mm.
can't measure trauma, really. You really can't put a
Mm.
number on trauma. So that's the number that we're working with, 17 to 20 trillion, but
Mm.
it could really go up to 100 trillion, even quadrillion, when you really look at the numbers.
Okay. And and I get this from both sides, and maybe it goes back to when uh direct descendants of slaves do something, everybody want to get in and weigh in.
Right.
A lot of people say, well, what are they going to do with that money? Uh, I
Yeah.
never, people, they ask some questions, they say, well, what are they going to do with the money? That's what I want to know, and then that'll stop them from even looking at it and
Right.
seeing why there's a need and why it should be done. But what are some of the hard questions? Like, because people ask stuff like that. What y'all gonna do with the money? They gonna give it right back,
Man, that is one of the ridiculous. Nobody asked the Jews, what y'all gonna do with that land over in Israel?
right?
Nobody asked them that. We
Mm.
paid the Japanese. They didn't ask them. So we need to figure out what y'all gonna do with this money. We need to make sure
Right.
y'all not gonna blow it. We got to make sure nobody is asking that. That's
Mm.
not up to you how we spend the money. See, that's still
Right.
that that white master paternalistic complex at
Mm.
play, thinking that, oh yeah, these folks, they ain't gonna do nothing but mess the money up. But guess what? We are asking ourselves these questions.
Mm.
It's black folks saying, what we gonna do with the money? I don't think that's a good idea because we gonna blow the money.
Mm.
So yeah, that's one of the wild questions that we've been asked. I mean, we've been asked, well, what about the Native Americans? It's like, wait a
Okay.
minute. That's a whole nother issue. That ain't got nothing to do with what we got going on, you know?
Mm.
So yeah, you're gonna have all types of weirdo questions that people try to ask, but it don't make no sense.
Okay. And I've noticed some cities have done something towards repayment. There's a city, I think Evanston, Illinois.
Yes.
Uh, they're considering reparation. What are your thoughts on that? Are you guys working with them, or what's going on?
Well, see, this is the thing. And so what we're doing in all of these places, and California is working on a reparations bill. Asheville, North Carolina is working on a reparations bill. Um, Another city in North Carolina is working on reparations as well.
Okay.
It's their local efforts all around the country pushing for reparations. But this is our thing. If it's not dealing with us specifically, don't call it reparations.
Hmm.
Don't call it reparations because that sends a mixed signal saying, "Oh, we pay reparations." Well,
Right.
no, you didn't. So the Evanston bill, the only problem with it is it goes to everybody black. And the majority of folks in Evanston aren't even descendants of American chattel slavery. It's mostly black immigrants up there. So that's why we got to be we're looking closely at all of these bills on a local level, because what they're trying to do is, if we're not careful, they're going to use the local bills as an excuse to not pay the
Ooh.
actual debt that's owed from the federal government. So we
Uh,
got to make sure we stay on them about, no, this is a debt that the entire country owes, not just these local municipalities. But
right.
if those local municipalities are dealing directly with descendants of American chattel slavery, we don't have no problem with that, because
Mm.
we definitely can utilize all the help we can get. So there is a group of mayors that are for reparations, so we're making sure we inform people that, yes, you can affect change on the local level, but you better read that language and make sure it's going to who it needs to go to. The state of
Right.
Oregon is actually taxing dispensaries, and they're putting it in a reparations fund for descendants of American chattel slavery as well. So I love it. They doing a lot in Oregon. If we can get that model all across the country,
Hmm.
we'd be in great shape. And I think they talking about giving every black Aragonian $200,000, if I'm not mistaken. But that
Whoa.
that don't quote me on that. That number might be wrong. But the point is, we're all for local municipalities doing things, but let's be clear, that's not going to take away from the fact that we need a federal reparations program and rollout.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because when you look at places where I think in Stockton, California, they were giving out just some money, but that's not enough to compensate us for 400 plus years,
No.
and like you said, there would be cities write that out. Oh yeah, yeah, we gave y'all some reparations a couple years ago, and you took that money. Everything's good over here. We don't have a reparation problem, but the that's like uh, ignoring the source. And I know your continued efforts. Uh, you know, it, do you part of I've seen different things out there, but it, what 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 are you guys teaching people how to trace back their lineage? You know, to find out are they direct because they got all these little things. I'm not calling the names. The .coms. You pay them all this money, and then they find out they say you 5% this and 3% that. And what can you do to trace yourself back? To you know slavery.
Well, you can do your genealogy. You don't even have to do a 23andMe or
Okay.
ancestry.com. You don't have to do anything like that. You can do genealogy, and we are actually doing genealogy for people on the local level. And that's one of
Okay.
the things ADOS is going to be doing nationwide. We're going to make sure that people know their genealogy. Yeah, you know, I personally don't trust the 23andMe's because, the information came out that they're going to be using the DNA that they collect from people to make drugs, you know, without their permission.
Wow.
So, yeah, once you give your stuff to these companies, they own it. So, there are ways to go around that. Like I said, just do your genealogy. And
Okay.
um, I want to just clarify something. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay.
Uh, Oregon will be given their bill is to give Black Aragonians 123,000 and the bill was passed. So yeah. So when people say that it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. That's not true. There are uh, things happening on the local level all across the country. We just trying to get the federal government on board.
Okay. So what when back the one of the last presidential campaign, I think Cory Booker, even Kamala, Vice President now Kamala Harris, they was trying to get uh, candidates to commit. Just I don't think Bernie said anything, uh, but they were trying to get candidates to commit to some form of compensation or I know the studies are going on out there, and it
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of money to do these studies. But to
Mm-hmm.
get some concrete measures in that would outline and give us what we're supposed to get, whether it's money, land, because even going back to the 40 acres of the mule, uh, and sometimes that can be disheartening, to people because people, we say, well, man, we keep fighting this same fight, but this
Mm-hmm.
is the fight we can't stop fighting. Uh,
We have no
so
choice.
yes, yes. I mean, it's for the future, and if we don't stay on it, it'll fall by the wayside. And the way this country is, they'll just bulldoze over it, and it might be 50 to 100 years before somebody dig something up and say, "Hey, what about the reparation?" For the,
Right.
you know, so it's critical that we get on the ball, all hands on deck behind this thing, and don't get so caught up in a lot of the riffraff where they got us arguing over things that matter least.
It's
Because
exactly.
yes. Um, so is there you have regular meetings or
Well,
training or
right now we're doing a Zoom call once a month. That's
okay?
going to that's actually going to pick up more in the first of the year in January. So it's November, December. We're giving people a break. We're not doing anything, you know,
Okay.
letting people enjoy the season because it ain't even necessarily about the holidays. But let's be honest, the
Hmm.
way this thing is designed, it's the only time people get the days off together, you know?
Ah,
So, yeah, so we're giving folks a break and we're going to ramp back up as far as meeting when in January on probably a bi-monthly basis. Not bi-monthly, but bi-weekly basis. So yeah, we
ah,
definitely gonna be consistently meeting, and that's just right now. We're doing the Zooms, but yeah, we're gonna get together in person and start having real meetings again because COVID shut a lot of stuff down. So
ah.
we doing Zoom, and Zoom is super convenient.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what
Well,
we're
that's
gonna be
good.
doing.
And you made me think about something. One of the things that we put out for a challenge was to get in touch with your family members.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the things uh, we did a couple years ago, and the oldest member of your family try to reach back that way, because before we went to ancestry, uh, I had a deep talk to my mother who's 91, and I
Mm,
found we were able to go back 4 generations.
mm,
Okay, now on my dad's side, it was a little weaker because we was only able to go back one.
mm. Okay.
You know, my
Okay.
dad didn't have a clear definition of his dad. So
Mm-hmm.
when we look at tracing our lineage back, because I saw somewhere where it said if you go back 12 generations, you would have something like 4,000
Yeah.
great 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 greats. Because
Yeah.
if you go back one generation, you got four
Right.
grandparents, you got eight great grandparents, and six, 8, 16. It just keep multiplying. And
Yeah.
each of those are generational uh, timelines. Because when I look, and I think we could go back as far, I think I found, which was a great, great, great grandmama. She was around 17 something, you know, around that time period, 1740 or something like that. But that's as far as we could go back,
Mm.
physically with records and being from Georgia to see graves because we went out to a grave down in South
Mm.
Georgia and we saw grave markers that was barely readable. But from there we was piecing stuff together. So we definitely encourage people to check their lineage, who and where they come from, and then some of the stories because sometimes as a people here, because even people that here in America, some of them trace their lineage back to what we can say indigenous people.
Yes. Speak on
And
it,
this
man.
is so this it's an interesting movement, and it requires a little work. You know,
And I'm so glad you said that because and I'm so proud. So you was able to trace your lineage on your mother's side back to 1743?
yes, right, 1740s, right?
The 1740, see, that's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's so key, man. And like our history, they lied about our history so much. They don't want
Mm.
to talk about the fact that many of us predate the European in this country because that
Oh,
ties us to the land. that ties us to the land. And one thing I love about this reparations fight is showing that yes, we have a lot of differences, but there's a common ground that we all have. Whether you believe your ancestors came from Africa, whether you say all of them did, whether you say some of them are indigenous, whether you say
Right.
all of them are, one thing we can agree on is that we came through slavery. We
Mm.
came through slavery. So if we can all agree on that and move that forward, that will bring our lineage to and our people together. I'm not going to say I am, because you have in politics they have us so divided. So they
Right.
got us saying, no, you're a woman before you're black.
Oh, yes.
They got the LGBT community say, no, you're LGBT before you're black. You're a man before you're no, we don't need to do that. We don't
Right.
need to do that. We need to prioritize who we are in our lineage and go lineage first. Because at the end
Mm.
of the day, these subgroups are subgroups, but inside the subgroup, y'all all might be women, but I guarantee you there is a racial wealth gap between black women and white women.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And that's due to our lineage. And that goes for all subgroups, whether you are a midget, whether
Oh,
you are
yeah.
a black biker, however you want to qualify yourself, it doesn't matter. So
Right.
this movement is actually going to help bring our people together so we can see ourselves as family again, brother.
Mm. And you know what? That's a great point. I think sometimes, and you can see why America would not want uh, that type of cohesiveness, because it underlines what they want to do: maintain uh, white oppression. And
Right.
I've seen it with so many things with these recent trials, whether it's uh, I just saw a guy in I think Wisconsin, and then down here in Georgia, Ahmaud Arbery.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
how people are looking at things, and however you trace yourself, if you were already here, there were people that captured the people that was already here,
Yeah.
enslaved them.
And put
So
them in slavery. Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see this particular, uh, which we got one enemy in common, uh, we have to stay focused. We can't allow, and that's one thing I'm glad that you took the time to come to us and explain, because people have all kind of stuff, and then they get on the internet, press the little button, you arguing and creating something that does not exist, instead of going and finding out more about the organization and what they're doing to move the ball forward to help our people. They're just saying, well, they don't like me. They already, you seem like, where you get this from? They
Right.
don't want me in there, and we tend to gravitate sometimes towards the negative, you know,
Absolutely.
and when you can get the facts, because one thing about this machine called America, it's clear. It doesn't let anything break it down.
Mm-hmm.
If we go to war, even though from the first time they brought us into the picture, World War I, they said we're Americans. We're going to war. Now they might have treated you like crap when you came back. They did the same thing in World War II. We're Americans. We're fighting the Nazis. And then they treated you like crap. And then Vietnam, and then even now with some of the conflicts and battles, people find out that they still treated like second class people, irregardless of whatever you call yourself or whatever you want to identify as. You'll find out that uh, the gap, even if you're rich, there's a gap, because they got certain things as that money, and which is old money, and new money still got to bow down to old money.
Yes.
So you see that money alone doesn't get it. There has to be some things in play where you get compensated, and then I know sometimes people debate about it, but if it brings us up, and it might take a little bit longer to close that gap, but we'll close that gap better and quicker and faster with some form of compensation, reparation, or whatever we want to call it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And we're going to need, you know, it's a multi-pronged approach. Like we're going to need institutions and protections, just like I read, to make sure it's not a Black Wall Street thing.
Ah,
Once we build, it's going to be destroyed again. We
right,
need to be considered a protected class. So it'll be illegal for corporations to try to siphon that money from
ah,
us.
yes, yes, yes.
The predators, you know? So it's a multi-pronged approach, and we're going to need lineage trauma therapy. We're going to need to deal with the psychological effects of what we went through. So
Right.
it's not just enough to throw a check at our
Okay.
situation.
Right.
So I'm so appreciative that we had this conversation.
Ah,
And
yes,
yeah, you
and
definitely.
yeah, and definitely, brother, we got to bring you back. I just want to ask one last thing. Because you got your own channel, you got a whole lot going on. What's the importance of media? Because we used to not have a voice unless we went before the big alphabet, ABC, NBC, CBS. But now we can create our own voices, our own mediums. So what are your thoughts on these media tools being used for liberation of our people?
Man, I'm so glad you asked that. Being in media, this is so key. It's so key what you're doing, because the word is not going to get out for our stories. We have to
Mm-hmm.
share our own stories. We have to produce our own media, because no one is going to get our story out like we're going to get it out. We have to have the passion be- behind the images that are shown. They're literally waging war on us through media, you know?
Right.
Through media. The images that they show are not positive images. We talk about the four branches of government, but the fifth branch of government is actually Hollywood in media.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
That's the fifth branch, as far as I'm
Mm.
concerned, because you can't fight a war without propaganda. So they have to have us believing that we are less than, and they do that through media. So they take media very seriously, very seriously. And we have to take it equally as seriously, and we have to support Black media. We got to
Mm.
support what we're doing, because without that, we don't have a voice. And it's so
Wow.
critical now, because we have the ability to not only create the media and hope a white network pick it up. That's not Black media, because they're
Mm.
putting it out. We have the ability to put media out like you're doing in real time. That right there can change our situation, and we can't get anywhere without it.
Uh, and we appreciate what you're doing, brother, over there, uh, with the Hood Heroes.
Yes.
Uh, because we have to change the narrative. And like you say, yeah, media is a form of government because they dictate, they counsel you, they tell
Hmm.
you what you can say, what you can't say, how you can say it. Uh, they can control the actions and efforts of people and organizations if you're not careful, because they control the movement. They determine, these algorithms determine, who sees you when they see you and how often they see you. But if you give the audience, and I thank you, but give the audience any contact information that's relevant to you, organization, or even your show, and how to get in touch with you.
Most definitely. For more information on ADOS, go to ADOSfoundation.org. Y'all can reach me. Y'all can see me on Hood Heroes TV, on YouTube, Facebook sometimes. I'm getting away from Facebook because yeah, it's a situation as far as censorship is concerned.
Mm,
So that's the next step though. Eventually, Hood Heroes is going to be its own platform, you know,
okay.
and so we got to we got to move differently now. So that's why I respect what y'all doing, because we need these avenues, we need these platforms. So yeah, please reach out, man. I enjoyed being on the show, brother Reginald,
Yeah. Yes.
and I love the fact that you are the peopleologist.
Ah,
We need
yes.
that. We
Yeah,
need to
we
study ourselves and people, period.
woo, yes. And you know, it's good to have a face that you can associate. You know, sometimes we disagreeing, just pushing buttons. But
Mm-hmm.
when we get to talk and dialogue, you brought, and we were able to get this whole plate of food, and we could eat it a little bit. What you didn't like, spit it out. But at least get part of the meal, break a little bread with each other, and find out what's really going on without somebody else on the outside telling you that you and this brother don't get along, you and this sister don't get along, and
Right.
all this type of stuff. You know,
Yeah,
so
because we're not gonna agree on everything, and that's cool.
right.
Who agrees with you? We don't even want that. Sword sharpen sword, steel sharpen steel, and that's what a movement is. People doing things in their lane, working in concert to get to the common goal.
Ah,
So thank you,
yes.
brother, for having me on,
Well,
and
thank you.
I'm so appreciative, man.
Oh yes, and continue the good work, and we'll keep in touch. And you know, we've got a whole lot, and I encourage everyone to check those surveys out. Either we're gonna email them to you, text them to you, or you can find them over on the We Are Ready page. And any topics, we got a whole plethora of things. We got questions and different things that's going to get us ready and get us in position so we can stay ready. And we have to be proactive where we don't rely on someone else to tell us what we should be doing, how we should be doing it, and when we should be doing it. This is Reginald Drummer, the Peopleologist, coming to you live again with We Are Ready. And remember this, stay ready. That way you don't have to get ready. Make it a great